Today. I want to thank everybody for joining us today, the panelists and our attendees that are on the line. Welcome for joining. This is Novel Capital's Black in Tech, Building the Next Great Startups webinar. We're very excited today to be joined by four incredible Black founders who are putting their own stamp on the tech industry. Before we dive into introductions of everybody, just a quick reminder that today's panel is recorded. It'll also be sent to all registrants after the webinar. And if you have any questions or comments for any of our panelists along the way, feel free to drop them in the chat and I'll jump in and get our panelists to answer those questions as they come up or hold them until the end. And so without further ado, I'm going to hand this off over to our moderator, Carlos Antequera, who is the CEO and co-founder of Novel Capital. Take it away, Carlos.
Thank you, Lynn, and thanks everybody for joining us today. So super excited for today's conversation, and definitely an honor to be hosting this today, and particularly excited by the four fantastic entrepreneurs that we're joined by today that were kind enough to make a little bit of time of their day and the business of running a company to share a little bit of their journey with us today. And as Lynn mentioned, this is really an opportune time in honor of Black History Month. We thought it would be very timely to have this conversation that in many cases, we don't have the forum to have those as often as maybe we want. And so we'll take this opportunity to do that today. And hopefully that'll be just the spark to continue some of these conversations. At Novel, we're particularly passionate about this. We have as one of our primary goals really to leverage technology to help founders in general, but we have definitely a soft spot for diverse founders to help them really build their companies and provide fair access to capital, which is one of those key ingredients for you to fuel your growth. And so this is very relevant to the work that we do every day. In particular, we know that building a company is not an easy feat for anybody. But we know, from history that diverse founders, and in particular founders of color, have had to overcome a lot to deliver that the fantastic products they build, the innovation that they create to their communities and to the world. And so, if we can get a little bit of wisdom from the entrepreneurs that we have today, for the folks that are in the audience that might be thinking about starting a company, might have a company, and they're trying to figure out how to get to the next milestone. All those things I think will be super helpful. So I'll stop talking and let our panels really impart a little bit of that wisdom and sharing. So we'll start with Valarie King-Bailey as our first panelist. She is the CEO of OnShore Technology Group. And Valarie, it would be great to just hear a little bit about you, what OnShore does, share that with the audience.
Absolutely. Thank you so much to Novel Capital Partners, and thank you all for joining us today, and welcome to my esteemed panelists, colleagues. I'm Valarie King-Bailey, CEO of OnShore Technology Group. OnShore is an independent validation and verification firm. That's a fancy acronym for meaning we do software testing for life sciences companies. Those would be pharmaceutical, medical device, biotech companies, etc. One of our most famous customers these days is a company called Moderna. Many of you have probably heard about them. We developed our own platform. It's a cloud-based platform for computer systems validation called Validation Master. It's a complete enterprise validation management and quality system for life sciences companies, and it helps them to accelerate new products to market. During the COVID era, just recently, we actually doubled our revenues because many of our clients were seeking to bring new products, therapies, and PPEs to market. So one of the things that we did for our customers is not only deployed this platform to many global life sciences companies, but we also provided professional services to help them with validation projects as well.
Fantastic. So it's a business that's in a very relevant topic, growing quite a bit. Richard Campbell, he's the CEO of Simplify. Richard, maybe you can share a little bit about what was the inspiration for Simplify? How do you get started? I think you might be muted there.
All right, let's try that again. So
Yeah.
Simplify is in the business of providing managed infrastructure services for multi-location restaurant operators. So in a nutshell, with the growth in online ordering and the growth in engagement for retail through our cell phones or smartphones, et cetera, many of our customers don't really have an IT infrastructure, and they don't have the resources or the technology to really leverage those solutions properly. So we built a platform that essentially allows them to outsource all of their IT operations for their stores, and we manage it for them. So essentially we become their IT department. And so we take care of technology for the stores. They can focus on making burgers, making burritos, or whatever it is that they do. We actually came across this because at a previous company I had, we built a platform for a large financial services company, retail financial services. And that product ended up working really well. Being an entrepreneur, we said, wow, if we took that and took it to a different market, we could really scale it up. And that's how we ended up getting to Simplify. The other side of this is that with the customers that we serve, they tend to be entrepreneurs as well, right? So a lot of them are small to mid-size, anywhere from 5 stores to 100 or so stores. And so we understand their challenges because we're a small company that's on the entrepreneurial side as well. So that's kind of our story.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that, Richard. One of our other panelists is Austin Rowling. He's the CEO of Outfield. Austin, maybe you can give us a little bit of color around what was the inspiration behind Outfield.
Outfield, the inspiration from Outfield was born out of this vision that I have for myself. You know, at the age of 21, right? I knew back then, and I think it was divine intervention, but I knew back then that I wanted to fund minority-run projects and startups, right? But back then, I didn't know that there was actually a career for this, right? I didn't know that there was a job for this. So I started researching, like, you know, what is funding of projects? And I came across private equity, and I came across venture capital, and I started learning about venture capital. And I'm like, yo, this is it. This is what I want to do. This is what I want to do. So then once you learn about, you know, something, your passion, your purpose, you start to dig into how do I get there, right? And so I started researching, you know, how do I establish this sort of career for myself? And, you know, at the time, there was really only two ways that you can do it. One, you could network with someone who, you know, was part of a VC firm, or they knew somebody that was part of a VC firm, and then you kind of network with them, get a job, and work your way up, right? Yep. The other option is to start your own company, establish your own wealth, and use that wealth to start your own VC firm, right? And so I was 21. This was a long time ago. I don't want to reveal my age.
We'll keep that a secret. Yeah.
So the point of the story was when I was looking at this career path, I didn't see a whole lot of people who looked like me in the venture capital space, right? I didn't. So I actually was like, yo, the probability of me starting a company and selling it for hundreds of millions of dollars and starting my own VC firm, that was more probable, right? Both of them, like, you know what I mean? So, you know, Outfield, essentially, the inspiration behind Outfield is like, it's this bridge between, you know, who I am as a person, and is meant to get me to where I want to be, which is a funder, and I'm glad that we're doing this, a funder of Black and Brown entrepreneurial projects, because I think that's something that, you know, is being neglected right now.
Yep, that's definitely a need for that. We see that every day. And then our fourth panelist, Devon Drew, the CEO of DFD Partners. Devon, maybe you can share a little bit about what DFD does and how did you get DFD started?
Yeah, thank you. And thank you for everybody for joining. My name is Devon Drew, founder, CEO, and CIO of DFD Partners. DFD stands for Diligence Fund Distributors. A little bit about my background. So I've been on Wall Street for 16 years and discovered that it is super antiquated the way that capital flows between the large asset managers and the allocators. So being able to partner with some of the top engineers that have created some pretty popular cap intro type of platforms, we were able to form an AI-based distribution platform that connects fund managers with a product fit, with an allocator with the product need. And the benefit to the asset managers and fund managers is it reduces their client acquisition costs, reduces their time for fundraising, and allows them not having to add to that expensive headcount. So when you look at our ecosystem, looking at $85 trillion industry, knowing that only 1.4% of those managed by diverse managers, you try to figure out, well, why is that? One, you're looking at getting through the diligence process. Two, AUM. Combine all of that with a creative AI-based distribution platform, offer it up as a service, is how we're able to make it, put a dent in that 1.4% number.
Yeah. Very, very good. So one of the exciting things that hopefully you guys are noticing is just the variety of entrepreneurs and industries that where innovation is happening, right? And the different journeys that everybody has had to get to where they are now. And so continuing on that theme of journeys, one of the things I think we know is that when you're getting started as an entrepreneur, especially as a first-time founder, you have more questions than answers, right? There are a lot of things you have never done, a lot of things that you don't know where to even start or what to do, and there's usually not just a single place where you can get those answers. There's not an easy book or a silver bullet for that. So Valarie, it would be great to learn from you in your journey when you're getting started. In particular, what are those things that either programs or people or places that you were able to leverage to get jump started? In particular, your experience would be great.
Yes, thank you for the question. Number one, I do set goals every single year since I've been in business. And I think that's a very important thing for any founder. When I started OnShore, I started out with a goal of becoming a multi-million-dollar company. I didn't start OnShore as a lifestyle business. I fully intended for this business to grow into a multi-million-dollar enterprise. One of the first things I did when I started the company, and the journey is a little bit different, unfortunately, for men than it is for women. When I started the program, I had the mentality that cash is king. I knew that in order to grow and sustain a business, I would have to manage effectively cash flow. Number one, I would have to get cash flow, and then I would have to manage it. So one of the things I did starting out is I went to the Women's Business Development Center. The federal government has a program called Give Me 5, meaning that 5% of all government contracts have to go to women-owned businesses. So I started out getting certified as a woman-owned business. That was one of the first programs I leveraged. And then I started talking to individuals who were personal mentors of mine, and they gave me good strategic advice. I also participated in several entrepreneurial programs for African Americans that were based in Chicago. Number one, I joined the Runners Club. It was a group of like-minded executives, Chicago Urban League Next One, and Inner City Capital Connections was another group that I joined. And the upshot of all of those groups was entrepreneurial education. Even though Capital Connections promised funding, there were no capital and there was no connections at the end of the day, which was a little bit disappointing. One of the programs that really did help me was the Novel Capital program. I took advantage of the strategic advice that was offered me through the program, and they had a co-sponsor, Founders First. That probably, even more than the funding that I got, that probably helped me the most to catapult the business. It's one thing if a VC tosses money over the fence and says, here's a big bag of money, go do your thing. But it's another thing if that same VC says, look, I can help you get from point A to point B. So after the investment from Novel, literally our company grew. We were first listed on the Inc. 5000 1 year after receiving the funding. And then last year we were listed again as one of the Inc. 5000. And I'm also one of the Inc.'s 100 female founders in the group. So the long story short is that as a woman-owned business, you really do have to kind of go the extra mile. I participated in a program that was sponsored by American Express and a group called Count Me In. It's a group called Make Mine $1 Million Business. I don't know if you know this, but only 2.5% of women business enterprises ever exceed $1 million. 2.5% of all female businesses. So me starting the business thinking that I could be a multi-million-dollar business is part of the interesting journey, so to speak, that I took. Today, I'm proud to say we are a multi-million-dollar business and we're continuing on that growth path.
Yeah, that's a fantastic story. Congratulations on all the success, and you are you know, in a part of a very elite group of women, if you consider those statistics. So congratulations, definitely on all that success. And you know, you were able to share what I think is, you know, not a very common path in which you found all these different things that worked for you and for your business. Austin, would be great to hear you started, I think, when you were sharing a bit of your story to talk about, you know, how do you fund your business? How do you start your business off the ground? And then yeah, as Valarie mentioned, you need capital, you need to manage your cash flow. How did you get started from that perspective?
So I'm gonna begin by correcting Valarie a little bit. Listen, I enjoyed your whole conversation. I really, really did. But she led with, you know, this idea that women had to be more frugal than men when it came to starting up a company, right? What she did not say is that was only applicable to white men. That's what she forgot to mention. So, and for the people who are watching, I needed to say that. It's like, because the rules are different for both Black women and Black men. So I
stand corrected.
Everything else you said was on point, but I was like, nah.
We have it on the record.
All right, so what was the question again?
How did that, you know, journey of kind of beginning your company, how did you deal with the funding the business, right? So when you start, you usually don't have customers. You need that initial funding to get going, and that's where, when I talk to a lot of early stage entrepreneurs or folks that want to start their business, that's where they get caught, right? They're working somewhere, I don't have the capital. Where do I go to get the capital? How do I just get kind of this thing off the ground to execute?
The reason, one of the reasons why we're here today is because the rules are different for us. The rules are different for us. And so You know, I look around and I look at people who are trying to establish the same things that you know we are here trying to establish, and the rules, like the journey is different, right? In terms of like VC funding and things of that nature, it's pretty much non-existent now for me. The journey has been underwhelming. And at this point, when a VC firm reaches out to me now, I usually don't even respond to them unless it's like a director or principal. Yo, they can miss me with like the lowest level associate reaching out to me trying to pry information. I think that's very disrespectful, right? You got your lowest ranking individual trying to reach out to the highest ranking individual, and we're supposed to be honored by that. No, I'm not feeling that. But what I will say to this is that as Black entrepreneurs, we need to factor in whenever we decide that we want to run a tech company, or we just want to run any company for that matter, we gotta factor in the built-in inequalities when we make our risk assessment decisions. You know, we talk about all the time, like all the venture out of all the venture capital that was spent last year, only 1% was allocated towards Black founders, right? I'm like, what more do I got to do? What I got to do? So it's just an unfair sort of reality that we have to consider when we think about starting our own company, and that's fine. Listen, for anybody who's listening, at the end of the day, if you're an African-American founder, just know that at times you're going to feel like you're swimming upstream, but do not let that stop, right? You're going to feel like that, and at certain times you're going to feel like quitting, but don't let that stop. You're smart enough to beat it. As far as Outfield is concerned, I bootstrapped Outfield, which meant that I had to go out and sell our services. I had to go out and sell our services. I sold our services, and I used that revenue to put back into the company and grow it. Now, the upside of that is you get to keep your company, right? The downside of not having like VC funding is that it might take longer to grow your company, but I was okay with that because I thought it was the right decision. I mean, it instilled disciplinary sort of practices that we abide by today, right? And I recommend, honestly, for anybody who's looking at starting up their own company, if you can bootstrap it as long as you can, that gives you a whole lot of leverage when it's time to actually have a sit down with a VC firm, because they will try to take advantage of it.
Yeah, no, that's a great comment, and I would say if you bootstrap and you generate revenue from customers, that's the best way to show product market fit, and that's the best way to get good at sales, right? That's when somebody's paying you for your product, then you know you have something.
Right. Yep.
So that's the best. Yeah. Devon, would be great to hear. How have you managed your the funding of your company as you kind of built your venture?
Yeah, no, thank you for asking. So I bootstrapped, I believe, the first $250,000 into the business out of my own pockets. I raised an additional about $1 million friends and family, but it was difficult. You know, people couldn't understand leveraging AI ML to help the flow of capital, right? So having to explain the inner workings of that, in the same time staying very high level and not try to confuse somebody. So now, as far as where we are currently, what we face is people view our valuations as, let's say, too high. So despite 16 years working on Wall Street, despite proving out the not only the product but the service, despite in 6 months getting $1 million plus in revenue, still people had problems with the valuation. So similar to some of our colleagues here, I mean, I say, you know what, let me just build up the revenue to the point where I don't need to I don't need VC funding. I don't need to be belittled or say that my company's worth half of what it's worth. And then if you look at our latest the latest company that tried to acquire us, it was probably 3x from what other companies were trying to get in our seed round. So and definitely, if you could bootstrap it. I mean, managing cash flow is a daily struggle, but knowing that But knowing that my revenue meets my burn, it makes it a lot easier from when you do go to raise a price round, to where it's like, hey, listen, we proved out the concept, we got the revenue, and then I own most of the company. I believe it's like 90% of the company. So then it puts a position of strength when I go to try to give out 15 to 20% in the price round.
Yeah, no, definitely. Control your destiny, right? If you have the revenue and you can be break even or better, then you have options, and optionality is good. Yeah, Richard, what are your thoughts around that?
I think that what's been said is pretty spot on. My path is a little bit different, but I think some of the fundamentals are the same. I started out early on. So my first company was in the mid-90s, and I've had 7 companies. Simplifies to 7th one. So some of those have done really well, some not so well, some failed miserably. So I've been around the kind of the funding block a few times, and I got the scars to show for it. The thing that's different, I think, today versus not so many years ago, is originally, when I first got in, getting money from VCs or angels or even bank funding, in some cases debt, was really challenging because it was really based around who you knew and what networks you had access to. And getting into those networks was really, really hard. I remember in the late 90s going through a funding round and doing maybe like about 10 different pitches. And out of those 10 pitches, it was the same 8 or 9 people mixed up amongst the different presentations that I did. And it really felt quite frustrating. So as a minority entrepreneur, you learn really early on that the way in which you play the game, you have to adjust for where you're starting. So one of the great things about our country is that you get to play the game. That's the first thing, right? So we get the opportunity to play. We might have to start a little further back, but we get that opportunity. So if you're looking at starting a company or you are in the midst of building a company, don't forget the fundamentals of business. And my peers have all said this: cash flow is king, understanding how to build a business and be profitable. You don't have to make $1 million in your first day, but if you put $1 in and you can get $1.01 back, you're going in the right direction. And when you go to raise money, if you can show and you can prove that you have a sound idea, that there are people who are willing to pay you money for that idea, and that the money they're willing to pay you can build an actual profitable business and not a hobby. Because if you're not making money, you have a hobby. You have to pay attention to those fundamentals. And sometimes I think we get distracted by trying to shoot so far, so fast that we forget about the fundamentals. And money is a component of the success of your business. Your business is not going to be successful just because you have money. I can give you 10 gallons of gas, but if you don't have a match, that gas is useless, right? So you have to understand the fundamentals of business. And for me, both my parents were entrepreneurs. And so I learned at a really early age that you build a business one step at a time from the ground up. And when you get to the place in which you can prove that there is a business there, raising capital gets a lot easier, but you have to put that work in first.
Yeah, definitely. And Valarie shared, some of those tools or resources she was able to use. And we know that being an entrepreneur, you cannot do it all alone. Since we have you, Richard, any particular resource that has been super helpful to you, or that you think would be helpful for entrepreneurs that are, in that journey?
That was directed at me or Valarie?
Yeah, Richard. Yeah.
Absolutely. So as one example, I mentioned the construct around those networks, right? And one of the things that I've seen, and I see today, is we are in this place where we're so hyper-focused on links and relationships, but we want to get 1,000 links that's the strength of a thread. I'd rather have 5 that's the strength of a metal chain. The relationships that you build and the networks that you become a part of, and that can actually contribute something to your success more than just a number on the screen that says you have a link.
Yep.
That's the thing I would recommend and say to people: build relationships from the start. When you're planning and you're thinking, position yourself, put yourself in a place where you can have access to folks who can help you learn and understand, and that you can leverage. Those relationships may not bear fruit for years. So you have to view it in that way. You're planting a seed that's going to flourish at some point in the future, and you have to nurture, water, and support that seed. So relationships, I think, is going to be the number one recommendation I can say to anyone. Fewer relationships that are much stronger and that are more aligned with what your weaknesses are, that can show up those weaknesses.
Yeah, yeah. Quality over quantity. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. And Valarie, you were sharing, about the places that you were able to leverage. What were kind of the challenges that maybe you encountered during your journey that maybe if you share, some other folks might be able to avoid those?
Absolutely. Yeah. One of my favorite business books is Bill Gates' book, Business at the Speed of Thought. I read a lot of books from technology entrepreneurs. And one of the things that he said that I thought was profound is he said, it's fine to really celebrate success, but it's more important to heed the lessons of failure. Throughout OnShore's history, I've always looked at not just what we're doing right, but what are we doing wrong and how do we connect it? That's kind of one of the keys to sustainable businesses. Another thing that I look at as, the way I've overcome certain challenges of building a sustained business is getting repeat business. It is a focus at OnShore to not only get customers, which is one thing, but keeping customers, which is another. I have one customer in the United Kingdom that I have 36 statements of work for them over the past 10 years. That means that they've come back to us 36 separate times. It is a key performance indicator. And as we've built that business, I saw them go from roughly a $150,000 contract to a multi-million-dollar contract and engagement because we keep nurturing that business. Another challenge I experience is getting the right people on the bus. I think all my colleagues would look at that and say that also is the key to building a sustainable business over time. My most important asset walks out the door every night. And so what we do at OnShore is we treat our employees like family. We treat them like with respect. One of the results of that is that the employees that I have on board that are long-term, I've got people who've been with me since the beginning of the company. And literally, I have almost zero turnover in the organization because of that. And then the last thing I think applies to all of our businesses is innovation. It's a challenge, but it's also an opportunity. In that same book, Bill Gates said, I'm always paranoid that the next innovation that's going to come out is going to wipe out Microsoft. And I was thinking to myself when I read that, I said, if Bill Gates is paranoid, what should I be? So I am, cautiously paranoid, if you will, about the next innovation. So last year, what we did to get ahead of our competition is we added artificial intelligence and machine learning to our validated system for the very first time. We were first to market with that. And so far, it's going great. The adoption of this new technology is going great. So we're constantly thinking of new ways to innovate, and that helps to mitigate a lot of the challenges that we would have otherwise experienced.
Yeah, fantastic.
Carlos, if I could just mention something really quickly based on what Valarie just said, and I don't want to tie what she said back to the underlying conversation about fundraising. One of the key ways you can scale and grow your business and get over that first major hurdle is if you partner with a company or with a customer that is large enough and believes in you and invests in you. That is a really, really great way to get started. Yeah. And so sometimes if you have a solution for a problem that exists and you go to the folks who have that pain, you can build that relationship and scale from there. So for many of my companies, we may have started off with 1 or 2 companies that provided 80% of our revenue. And that was for the first year. I mean, I would stay up, every night terrified because if they left, I would fail. But if you nurture and build those relationships and grow on them, that is another interesting avenue to helping you raise the capital and have the cash flow that you need to do the things you need to do.
Exactly.
So that customer service, customer relationship aspect, I think that Valarie mentioned is key.
Exactly.
Thank you. Good for the customer and good for you. Definitely.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Austin, you mentioned that you started bootstrapping. What were so a lot of your own efforts were got you here today, but were there resources that you were able to leverage along the way that you could share with the audience?
Well, the first thing I would say is me going back to grad school, and I went to Texas A&M. I don't know if anybody.
Yeah.
I went to Texas A&M. I got my MBA there. I think it's important, and for me, the reason why that's important is because I studied communication undergrad, so I didn't have the business acumen that I needed in order to be successful. So I went to A&M, got my MBA, and that's actually where I met my co-founder. And that sharpening is what I needed in order to really think about business in a different way. The second thing I'll say is Naval Capital. Resources like Naval Capital. I don't want to mention any of your competitors, but like companies who are invested in startup companies, not necessarily in a VC sort of way, but maybe in a debt financing way. That's really propelled us in a lot of ways. And I think Richard, he mentioned relationships. I'm gonna be a little bit more specific for me. My mentors.
Yep.
Gotta have good mentors. And they're gonna help you, navigate through problems that they've already faced, right? And help you circumvent problems that they already faced. And for me, that while my journey has been super challenging, having the proper mentors in place who are giving me their time, talent, and treasure helped me establish Outfield.
Yeah, those are great ones. Just making some notes about some of those. Switching topics a little bit, we know that one of the important things is to see representation out in other entrepreneurs in similar industries, and you get some of that through press. Devon, I know you've been in the press lately. I think Valarie definitely with her mentions on Inc. 5000 and some other places. But maybe Devon, we could start with you. How do you get those opportunities, right? A lot of people are like, hey, I want to expand my brand. I want to get out there and let people know that we exist or that we're out there. That's how we attract some more customers, more investors. Kind of what has worked for you in that area, and what does it mean to you, besides the value that it adds to your company at a higher level? What's the value of you telling your story for your community and other entrepreneurs like you?
Yeah, so I'm a road warrior. I'm on the road probably every week. I go to a lot of industry conferences, and within those industry conferences, really having the opportunity to speak on a lot of key panels where my target audience is in the audience, right? So they're very captive, and that's allowed me to have different opportunities in the media, and then now being a contributor on CNBC and Bloomberg and Cheddar and Yahoo, where where not only the target audience is, but also their client is. So it kind of comes full circle, which adds a level of credibility. So when I go in with the service offering, and I put a bill for $100,000 on your table, they're more, our clients are more apt to pay it because we have that credibility. And unfortunately for the press has kind of amplified our success or our early success. We just hit $820 billion in assets that are flowing through our platform. So the press has got hold of that, and once again, all of it does is add further credibility to what we're doing.
That's fantastic. And Valarie, the same question to you. How have you been able to leverage that press, and how do you see that as an important way to also, help the community of other entrepreneurs like you.
Absolutely. There are business benefits to the press and social benefits. It's good business for me because it establishes credibility with our clients. When you work in the life sciences industry, credibility is everything. Life sciences companies simply won't do business with people that they think don't understand the unique challenges that the life sciences industry faces. It's great marketing and PR, and it's good for employee morale. A lot of the accolades and press I use in corporate and marketing presentations and on our website. So it's been excellent for business. From a social benefit perspective, we all are hidden figures. A lot of times organizations don't know that there's a Devin out there. They don't know that there's a Richard out there doing what he's doing. And so it's critically important that we not remain hidden figures, letting our light, stay under a bushel, so to speak. I established the OnShore Technology Group Foundation about 10 years ago. I live in the city of Chicago, and I grew up in Chicago's housing projects. So I did not grow up with a silver spoon in my mouth. I understand the nature of what inner city kids are facing. And during the pandemic, a lot of kids were forced to go remote in school. Well, a lot of the kids in inner city, centers did not have computers, nor did they have internet access in their house. The OnShore Technology Group Foundation provided not only computers for these youngsters, but we provided wireless connections so that these kids could go to school. Some of us don't think, because we're sitting on computers all day, we don't think about the kids who don't have computers. They don't even have a laptop or, a netbook. So that's something that I am very, very fierce about. And that's something, helping the foundation is something that the press has actually provided for us. I strongly believe in giving back to the community. I remember what it was like being a kid in the projects in poor neighborhoods and, not having role models to look up to. The press provides me with that avenue to really share my experience and tell kids who were like me, who had a gleam in their eyes, that you too can do it. I'm a fierce STEM advocate, so I support kids that are looking at science, technology, engineering, and math fields. It's very important to me, so I use the press to my advantage to get the message out to kids. You can do it too.
Yeah, that's fantastic, Valarie. And would love to remind the audience that if you have some questions, please post them in the chat. We've saved a few minutes to get those answered by by the group of panelists that we have. While those are coming, I think want to get your take to close out, maybe from each one of you. What is the most impactful piece of advice you received? Somebody just mentioned earlier, having mentors, and so those are really folks that can help on that. But might be another entrepreneur, might be a customer. So we'll start maybe with Richard. Richard, you want to share your thoughts about kind of what piece of advice you've received that's memorable?
Wow, that's a that's a tough one. I've been fortunate, and as Austin mentioned about mentors, have had some great mentors, starting with my parents, and many of them have given me great advice over the years. And those are things that at the time, sometimes I didn't appreciate or understand. And years later, you have that moment of clarity, and you didn't realize what they were trying to help you learn and understand. But I would say that one of the most impactful ones was learning that there is a difference between failing and failure. And it's a terrible thing, I think, that there are so many people who have so much potential and so much great opportunity, but the fear of failing at something holds them back from engaging and doing. And because we live in a society where we hyper focus on a very small minority of people that we deem successful. And they have well-managed PR teams and marketing teams to craft the story that they're telling you. You don't know about the 100 companies they had that failed. You know about the one that succeeded, right? So as I said, I've had 7 companies, half of which failed miserably. A couple of them I sold. So don't be afraid to fail, and being comfortable with failing and realizing that failing is how you become successful, because you learn from your failures. If we all gave up trying to stand up the first time we fell down as a baby, we'd all be crawling around on all fours, right? So that's the one I think that's been the most impactful for me. Don't be afraid to fail. That's part of being an entrepreneur and being successful, is turning and facing that and learning from it.
Perfect. Thank you, Richard. Austin, what can you say about your experience from that front?
For the audience or anybody who's looking at starting up a company, you really got to consider the why, your why. You have to know your why. You got to understand the purpose for what it is that you're trying to embark on, because this shit is hard. It really is. It's not an easy thing whatsoever. And so I think about purpose and persistence, right? In order for you to persist through some of the darkest, because listen, the panelists haven't really spoke about some of the dark times that they've had, but I'm sure they've had them. And I think that, you know, we need to acknowledge that, because that's part of the journey, right?
Yep.
And you know, I was homeless when I started Outfield. The first year and a half, I was couch surfing, floor surfing. I didn't know if this shit was gonna work. So it was very, very dark early on. And what got me through was reminding myself of my purpose. I told you guys who I wanted to be earlier in the conversation, which is a funder for underserved communities, right? And so when you are faced in some of your dark times, you got to remind yourself who's at cost if you decide that you want to quit, right? Like who's you know what I mean? So it's like, for me, whenever it's time for you to, you know, manage yourself through some of the difficult moments, you got to realign yourself with your center. You got to understand your why, and you got to understand your purpose. And that's going to ultimately help you get through some of the difficult times.
Perfect.
I got more to say, but I'm gonna let everybody.
I'm sure, right? We could learn and provide insights and definitely talk about those dark moments for hours, I'm sure, because everybody goes through them when they're building a business. Devon, any memorable insights or advice you received that you'd like to share with the audience?
Yeah, it's very easy to go down a tech rabbit hole when building out a product. So making sure that the demand is there, because you could be hundreds of thousands of dollars in before you get to an MVP. So that was probably the best advice. Not to say that I listen per se, because you know you want all the bells and whistles, but you know, when it comes to getting out an MVP, having that be bare bones, really conserving your burn, and then when you get some clients, some customers, some recurring business, some revenue, you know, then you could, you know, once you prove out the concept, spend on a version 2. And then secondly, you know, I struggled with, you know, I guess it's kind of complex, you know, having, you know, with my platform, but keeping my offering simple. So I had a mentor that said, you ever go into In-N-Out Burger? You know, I got 1, 2, 3 options, and that's it, right? So making sure to simplify your options so that, you know, people can understand it and they can digest it, and that they could ultimately, you know, give you the yes.
Those are fantastic. You actually remind me, there's and I built a couple of products that didn't go very far because right, it's kind of you get enamored with the product and with the building, especially if you have a tech background. But there's a book called "If You Build It, Will They Come?" And it really makes you think about about that, exactly what you mentioned. And then I think we have Valarie. Maybe we'll
Yeah.
get your thoughts on that as well.
Sure. I don't know if you can see this rock, but it says never, ever
Never
quit.
Yeah.
When I worked for Abbott Laboratories, I worked on a very, very challenging project that was about a $10 million initiative. The project resulted in about a $40 million savings for Abbott Laboratories. And my boss came by my desk one day and he handed me this rock that says never, never quit. And he said, Valarie, he said, I want to tell you something. Of all the people that I met in my career, he said, you're like the Energizer Bunny. You just never quit. We had so many challenges, so many setbacks on that project, so many things that went wrong. And I just kept pushing through. I just kept persevering. And it was one of, at least Abbott says, it was one of the most successful IT projects in Abbott's history. I actually won Abbott's Chairman's Award. And the advice that he gave me was always persevere. Now, I had been that way all my life anyway, but him telling me that, I've kept this rock on my desk all these years because I never forgot that somebody else actually put into words what was already in my spirit, which was to never give up. And that was probably one of the best pieces of advice that I've been given. I am actually writing my autobiography now, which will come out in third quarter. And the title of the book is Never, Never Quit. And I have a little, this rock is on the side of there. So that was the best piece of advice. And then, you know, just like Austin said, when I was leaving, University of Wisconsin for my undergrad, my advisor gave me a bit of advice. I asked him, what should I do? Should I get a master's in engineering or should I get an MBA? And the best piece of advice that he gave me was to get an MBA. And like Austin said, it really did help shape my view and reshape my view. I'm an engineer, I was technical, and I didn't consider the business side of things. And taking the MBA program was eye-opening for me, as it would be for any technical person. So, you know, thank you guys for sharing. And, you know, I kind of, Richard and I are kind of on the same level with that, you know, perseverance, don't ever quit.
That's fantastic. And you'll, Valarie, you'll definitely have to keep us abreast of your book when it comes out. So
Definitely.
we can get it. And I'll want an autographed copy. So just let me know
you
ahead
got
of time.
As a matter of fact, all of you guys will get an autographed copy. It's been a blessing being on this panel with you all. I've enjoyed your stories and everything. So thank you.
No, that's fantastic, and it's really being an honor to host all of you guys. You know, we can talk and learn and be inspired by you for hours, I'm sure. But I also know that you have a business to run that you gotta get back to. And so we really appreciate each one of you. I'm sure the audience has had the opportunity to have many takeaways, as I wrote a few notes here of things that, you know, it's always good to kind of get reminded. And so definitely appreciate your time. So thank you again from me. And Lynn, I don't know if you have a final wrap up comments there.
I do, but we've got a question from the audience that I think is
forgetting about the question.
a great thing to end on. So our audience, this questionnaire is talking about how driven and dynamic all of you are, which is very clear and apparent in this panel. And it's clear that so much rests on each of your shoulders. So our attendees saying they imagine that it can feel heavy. So how do you all take care of yourselves, body, mind, spirit? And what's your advice on how to others that are getting started? So like, how are you taking care of yourself through this process?
I was going to say I have to hop, so I'll answer this for myself real quick. Yeah, because I got to hop here, but no, I go to the gym. I just go to the gym daily. I mean, I'm probably not the best one to answer this because I work like an absolute dog, and I definitely need to take more breaths and take more breaks and meditate more. But I do go to the gym daily, for even if it's for just 45 minutes or hit the Peloton just to clear my head. But I definitely need to do more to for the balance.
Awesome. Thank you, Devon. We appreciate the time. Austin, what about you?
That's important. And that's very meaningful for me because of my journey in particular. The couch surfing and the floor surfing and not knowing if any of this is going to work. You just got a dream and you're just trying to like explain to people, hey, I got this vision and it's going to work. Like, you really have to maintain a positive attitude throughout all of this. So throughout my early parts of my journey, what did I do? I used, like, when I was sitting on the floor, I would just put my Beats headphones on and I would just listen to Christian music or motivational talks for hours and hours throughout the day. Because when you look at people around you, they're not going to understand what is being put into you, right? And sometimes it's not for you to explain to everybody else, right? So you got to stick with whatever vision that you have, right? Knowing that, like, everybody not going to be out. Listen, my family told me to quit, right? Outfield has done over $7 million in revenue. My family told me to quit early on. So my thing is this, it's like, you got to find your center point and you got to find outlets. And Devin mentioned the gym. Gym is important to me as well. I want to say this and then I'm gonna stop because I don't want to talk too much, but like, managing your mental health throughout this process is something that you cannot neglect. And, for the people who are Black and brown who are listening to this, we haven't done the best job in the past in managing our mental health. But listen, if you are going to start a company, you cannot neglect that. And here's what I'll say, and then I'll turn it over to everybody else. When it comes to mental health, right? Entrepreneurs, out of the survey that was done, out of entrepreneurs, the normal population, 30% suffer from depression. When you compare that to the national average, which includes everybody, that's 15%, right? You look at anxiety. Anxiety is higher among entrepreneurs relative to the normal population. There's another one, substance abuse. Substance abuse, out of all entrepreneur survey, this is Forbes, by the way, I can send you guys a link. 12% suffer from substance abuse, whereas the national average is 4%. So, and it goes on and on and on and on about this. My biggest point that I want to get across to you, to everybody who's listening, this is not easy. And if you Black and brown, it's really not easy. So you got to factor all of that in when you decide to embark on this. And I'm not saying this to discourage anybody. The reason why I'm saying this is you got to factor this in as you go along your journey, because listen, you got proof we can do it, right? It's evident we can do it. You got brilliant minds on this call. Just know that it's going to be difficult, and you really got to figure out ways to manage your mental health throughout the process.
Perfect. That's great advice and a great reminder. And I think with that we're at the end of our time. So again, thank you very much for everybody to participate in this panel, for the audience as well, and hope that we'll see you soon again.
All right.